Well, I have to tell you, in my ongoing conversations with Shirdi Baba, we have these discussions about words and how we use words. And when it comes to living intentionally, when we choose to live intentionally, we must have an awareness of what a word means for self, or what meaning or value we assign to that specific word. So then we use it, and then we know whether it's taking us towards an intention and keeping us living on intention or not. And of course, the word intention itself can be very confusing for most people. And I'm often having discussions with people in my personal life where they say, well, that was not my intention. And I get a little taken aback because I think, if that was not your intention, how did we wind up here? If that was not your intention, how did we wind up with this tangle or wrangle or complication? And usually the answer, as I see it or as I feel it, is that we start with one intention, and by the time we actually get to an outcome, we have forgotten to maintain the intention. But if we stay on that intention, or if we maintain it, maintain the awareness of it, and we're actually living it, then the outcome that we wind up with is usually resonant with the intention. It might not be the outcome you desired, it might not be the outcome you needed, but it is resonant with it in that the feeling of the intention you began with, whatever the words you put around it, is present in the consequences or the outcome of any action that follows through on that intention. Should I start again? Okay, here we go, doing this one again, because it gets complicated. Any intention must hold in your head a series of words with which you state an intention. Now, some people just mumble an intention. Some people declare. Some people state. But no matter which words we use for that intention, there is a feeling. There is even a knowing of who you are and what you're bringing to it, what you truly desire, what you truly want, and where you want that to take you. So when people say to me, that was not my intention, I always have a bit of a question in my mind about, well, firstly, did you actually have an intention? What did you declare to yourself, or mutter to yourself, or mumble to yourself when you started this whole ball rolling? And if you didn't start the ball rolling with any kind of intention, then obviously that ball had the freedom to go anywhere and do anything, because you didn't give it a focus. Your energy didn't send it somewhere or direct it somewhere or create a stream of creative energy for it to flow into. And of course, even if you start with a particular intention, but you don't maintain it, it isn't a part of your living being, it isn't coming from your heart, from your caring, even from the love of who you are inside, then of course it's going to veer off. Now, I remember, it's not going to follow through. It's not going to give you the same vibration at the beginning as you are going to experience at the end. So when people say to me, that was not my intention, I always sit there and I feel like where you started and where we wound up are two completely different vibrations, two different feelings, because you didn't bring the feeling from the beginning to here, where I am experiencing its impact. So don't tell me that was not your intention, because now I believe you. I believe that you might have had an intention, but that you didn't live it. So what happened to your intention? It changed, it dissipated, it got forgotten about, it wasn't lived, and at the end, when you say, that was not my intention, I can agree. I can completely agree that that was not your intention. Not because you intended otherwise, because really there's no intention now. Now we have confusion. Now we have complication. Now we have lack of clarity. So yes, there is no intention. But we have heard that phrase from so many people as an excuse. That was not my intention. And if that was not my intention, well then I don't actually have to apologize. I don't have to feel guilty or make amends. I don't have to change anything because that was not my intention. It was not my intention to hurt you. And that's the only time people say it was not my intention, right? Nobody says it was not my intention when it turns out fabulously right. And they're busy taking the credit for things going really well. Nobody says, actually, it was not my intention for you to be so wonderfully pampered today, but I'm so glad you were. Nobody does that. They only ever say, it was not my intention when they are making an excuse. So when I talk about words with Shirdi Baba, and he's very clear about what words he likes to use. He says, if you are going to live intentionally, which is what we're doing this year at Yabba Dabba Do, then right at the very beginning, that intention must hold a component of the power of the word. It must hold a component of your feeling. And if you can't dig deep enough to your feeling, then the emotions that you are bringing to that. And in addition to that, what are you contributing to ensuring that that intention lives, that that intention becomes? Because setting an intention and realizing the outcome of an intention is an entire process in the middle called living it, staying on focus with it, even becoming it. So for those of us who procrastinate, and I'm so good at this, I will set an intention and then eventually I will get around to following it up. In the meanwhile, every crazy thing that happens to get in the way of that intention manifesting or me living that intention is clouding my intention. It's causing me trouble because when I finally get around to it again, it's different. Somehow it is different. Sometimes it has gotten bigger and sometimes it has gotten smaller. Sometimes it's gotten more complicated and obscure, and all of my intentions are usually very basic until my mind grabs a hold of them and they get bigger. Then they become mountains that I must climb. And then I have to come back to the basics and say, but this is my intention. This is actually where I'm coming from. And I have to grab everything that's happening outside, bring it back to that intention in order to keep it there. So that the outcome, so that any result that is manifesting or unfolding doesn't get away from me. And I do not drift so far away from it that when it happens, I don't recognize that I was part of it. Now, how many of us have an outcome and we don't recognize that we're actually at the center of that outcome? Because the intention has gotten away from us. Its unfolding has gotten away from us. We've gotten distracted, we've procrastinated, we forgot we set the intention. And because we haven't stayed with it or focused it or lived it, it looks like somebody else was doing something in our lives and now that's what we have to deal with. So a lot of us have a lot of crap to deal with. And dealing with all of that, constantly having to deal with stuff, says, missed my intention somewhere. So I was complaining recently that this house feels like a prison. You know? I mean, I have to work really hard to live in it and to pay for it. And I've always said, for all of my life, I don't ever want to own a house because eventually it becomes that the house owns you. And of course, I've manifested that. I now live in a house that owns me. And you know, it's like got a big ownership because not only do I live here, but Spirit lives here with me and we maintain a facility and it's beautiful, it's lovely. It's got the most amazing, embracing energy, but still it owns me. So I looked at the house and I said, you know, we have to sort this one out. And Baba said, why are you talking to the house? It did nothing. Why are you scolding the house? Why are you scolding everybody else? It did nothing. Where did you lose your intention? Where did this work in progress become tedious for you? Where did you make it tedious for you that you lost the focus? When you decided you don't ever want to be owned by a house, where did you give your authority away? Take it back. So I thought, oh, okay. It was so easy after that. Because it's so easy to get into one flow of the game and play the blame game and look at circumstances and look at context and look at other people and say, oh, well, you know, I was being so good all along and this just happened. But nothing just happens. Nothing ever just happens. And in my mind, I had this picture of Paddy and I walking from the Clark Road house to the park. And we used to come down Ebor Road. And Ebor Road then used to have this croquet field, you know, where people roll a ball through the hoops and they knock each other's balls out the way. And there were usually all of these very dignified older gentlemen playing whenever we came by. And Paddy would stop and she would bark at them from the fence and they would come and say hello. It was all very open and clear and, you know, they would chat. They would see us every day. So every day somebody would greet us. And we would stand there and the older people would talk about how difficult this game was today or how hot it was. And we'd watch them rolling this ball. And sometimes they would focus clearly and then they'd set their hands down and they would roll the ball just so, and it would go skew. It would go in completely a different direction.
Granville Couriers, did they pick up a parcel?
Yes.
Can I tell him they did? He can go.
Thank you. So I would watch this ball go skew and the people who were playing the game would go, oh, you know, like it went in the wrong direction and they'd be a little upset. And so I used to ask, why doesn't the ball just go there? It's not a big distance. I can understand if it's far away and you're like rolling it all the way. And they would say things like, the way the grass grows would shift the ball. Or if the ball went over a stone, it would change its direction. That there was always something that the ball could meet that would change its direction, turn it into a new flow. And that was part of the challenge of the game. That was part of the challenge of not quite knowing what the circumstances were, not being able to control everything about the circumstances, but getting in the game and becoming patient enough. This game took a lot of patience. Patient enough, mastering one's own frustration sufficiently to accept that there would be those challenges and throw the ball anyway. Some people would throw the ball specifically to hit an opponent's ball and knock it out of the way so that they could then have access to a hoop. Now I used to watch this game and Paddy used to say, but Granny, if that ball goes through the hoop, does it mean you've won? And I thought it was a really silly game because, no, you know, you have to go through that hoop and another hoop and another hoop before you won. And they only gave you a certain number of balls to throw anyway. But we used to have a good giggle because now people would have to throw the ball to move their own ball along. You know, so another ball would have to come along and nudge yours into the right direction and through the other hoop. And eventually I'm looking at all of this in my memory. I'm thinking that game looks like life. It looks exactly like life. Because here's one intention, you know, one ball that I have thrown in this direction to get it through that particular hoop. And something on the ground has come along and taken it off direction. And now I have to throw another ball to get that one through the hoop. I need another intention to follow through on this one. I can't just go there and tow it over because that's against the rules. You know, I need to see where that went. I need to flow into that one with another intention. I need to bring another impetus of energy into it so that it flows through that hoop and gives me a somewhat desired result. And of course, we've learned the hard way that in the universe it is always a somewhat desired result. It is always a result that the universe knows is more, is better, is indeed fully intended for you, as opposed to the limited one that you hold in your own mind. So I was watching that game in my mind and thinking, if I have a limited number of balls to throw in this game, then surely I should be using those balls well. Surely they should be big, statement, declaration of self sort of intentions that then guides everything else. Where any smaller intention is already focused on that ball. Surely my big intention should stand right at the front and any small intention should flow into that and give it impetus. Rather than the other way around, where I must say I have this purpose in the world and then my purpose must send all of the little balls flowing out. Let's just turn it around a minute and say everything I do, everything I want to be, must serve that purpose, which in turn is my purpose for being here. Then what happens? It's like the whole playing field shifts. And strangely enough, even as I was thinking that, it's like all the hoops moved. All of the hoops got removed. as if there was no specific focused direction for that ball. Now that ball, where all of my little intentions are flowing into it in order to feed this bigger intention, and that becomes actually the focus of all intention, has no limits. That it can flow in almost any direction and still meet, still create, still become a somewhat desirable outcome. Did any of that make sense? Okay. So just as I was getting to that point, Baba said, so why don't you live like that? What do those hoops represent for you? And the hoops were actually goals, expectations, limitations of my mind again, that ball must go through that hoop in order for me to win that particular game. And we have those hoops everywhere, everywhere. So he gave me a new word for them. He said, call them reservations. And I had to pack up laughing, because in my mind, a reservation is a booking. You know, you call the restaurant and you make a reservation. You're making a booking to do something fun. Or you're making bookings for theater. You know, you're making reservations. And the flip side of that was, I have reservations about something, meaning that I'm taking a second look at it. You know, I have a slight concern. Or I have a bit of a worry about it. Or I'm not quite certain. There's a maybe. So I have reservations about it. So I said, okay. And he said, but reservations are also places where they used to put a whole clump of people in order to make them live together, whether they wanted to or not. You know? So in your mind, look at your brain and check. Look at yourself. Look at your emotional body and check whether you have a whole clump of different things, different thoughts, different experiences, different people sitting inside of yourself in a reservation, getting in the way of this energy flowing. And maybe that hoop is actually just a result of your reservations, where all of the clumps now narrow things down and say the ball must go through that hoop for you to have a desirable outcome. And all of your reservations, exactly like your conditioning and your past experiences and all of those enigmatic, mysterious things that you are sitting inside of you, speaking to everything. So when you stop living your intention, is it because you are living your reservations instead? And then, of course, we don't actually have reservations with destiny. We don't have a booking with destiny that says that's where I'm going and that's the outcome. So these reservations are actually things that anchor us. Even the reservations for dinner. It's like we know we're going to be there at that particular point in time. Anything else fabulous comes along, you say, I'm sorry, I can't do that. I have reservations for dinner. It's something that anchors us down. It gives us a space, a frame of reference. We know that that's what we're going to do. And we like that. And even when we say, I have uncertainties, I have reservations about something, it's a really great way of not explaining exactly what our problem is. We can't just come right out and say, well, I don't quite trust you, so I now have concerns about engaging in anything to do with you. We can't say that. We say, I have reservations. I have a mild concern. But really, what we have inside is a whole clump of things that we can't quite pin down, but that we are committed to going on inside. So I have no reservations about the universe answering everything. Whether I like the answer or not is a whole other story, but I have no reservations that the universe answers everything. So I said, fine. We're going to throw out the hoops. Here's something else we have to throw out now. We're throwing out the hoops, and we are living intentionally without reservation. And immediately I got a little scared. I felt like my body temperature shift. And I thought, ooh, that was a bit scary, this like living without reservations. Because actually reservations are nice things. If you come to think of it, they have boundaries, they have guidelines, they have infrastructure, don't they? I mean, here in South Africa, we call them townships, right? Yeah, like Phoenix and Chatsworth and Umlazi and KwaMashu. Townships. So we know who belongs there. We know what the boundaries are. We know where the fences are. We know where the bright lights are and where there's no electricity at all. We know. I mean, there's so many things that we know because of those reservations. And then when you let go of the reservations, it's like having that anxiety about just pitching up at the restaurant and not knowing that they're supposed to have a table for you. And then they might turn you away. They might reject your business and say, no, sorry, no table. You have to eat elsewhere. And your favorite meal, you can't have your favorite meal now because they don't have a table for you. They're not expecting you. And so we preempt that possibility by making a reservation. And if you go there without a reservation, then you regret that you didn't make one. Or you think, well, I'm a regular, they should have let me in anyway. They should make a special plan. We all have these arguments in our heads. Come, I know you'll do, because I do. And if I do it, everybody does it. Because I'm quite human like that. But here's the thing. Those reservations are to pin things down, to create a commitment, even to make us right. Because if you go there and they don't have your name on their reservation list, you say, oh, but I made a reservation. Huh? I spoke to so-and-so. My name should be in your book, and that was the table I asked for. So we're coming from a sense of, I know, I am right. Why can't we do the same things with our intentions? If we create our intentions and state them and declare them and feel them from that space of feeling them inside of us, then surely we know. Surely there is a rightness about it that we don't have to fight about in the universe. But if we have to, then we know this was right, this was true. And if you ask anybody who has made a decision that felt so completely right for them, and they moved into that decision and somebody else came up and said, oh, don't be silly, don't do that. The rightness of their original intention, the rightness of the choice that they made would take them through it. It would explain it. People stand their ground because it feels true and it rings true and it makes sense in a nonsensical world or even to a nonsensical brain. So this is where we get to say, congratulations, Carol. See? Because there are some decisions, some intentions that are just so true that they put you on hold for a while. Things might get delayed, but when they unfold so majestically that what is truly yours finds you. And then it moves you in ways into every part of the universe and answers you from almost everywhere simultaneously. And there is no doubt left that this is right and true. And it might not be right and true for everybody else, but whose intention was it to begin with? Yours. It's not required to be right and true for everybody else. It isn't even required to be right and true for you because requirement is an ego-based system. But when you feel it, you know it. And as it unfolds and you feel that, you know that. So this living on intention game that we are practicing this year takes courage. It takes strength. It takes vulnerability. It takes the recognition that you are in sacred partnership with yourself, even as you are in sacred partnership with the universe, and you are in sacred partnership with all of your sacred contracts. And that sacred partnership comes with a few rules. Sacred partnership requires integrity. So all intention requires integrity. Sacred partnership requires maintenance. So all intention requires maintenance. Sacred partnership requires always that we monitor ourselves, what we are contributing to it, how we are participating, what we're doing and thinking, and whether we are being disloyal to ourselves and others in that partnership. Intention requires the same thing, because intention is actually the point at which we are coming into union with an entire universe that is co-creating with us. Intention is where we meet, and therefore it is the sacred partnership. So the Lord Husband says to me yesterday, come Sajjana, you are lazy today. And I thought, it's okay to be lazy on occasion. It's okay to lie abed a little longer. What is the problem with laziness? And he said, no, there is a difference between being lazy and being sluggish and being lethargic and being disinterested and relaxing and being nothing. When you are being lazy, there is no intention there. There is no intention even to just relax and be nothing. Laziness is that you are trying to ignore and escape the whole world and pretending that it's not there with you. Laziness is that you are not living yourself fully. And then I found myself surrounded by lazy people, so I had to say, okay, I get it. I don't want to be lazy anymore. I'm going to be highly productive in the universe, even when I am being and doing nothing. And in fact, I am more productive in the universe when I am being and doing nothing. So now we are agreed I do not have to get out of bed early in order to be productive. I also do not have to be lazy to stay in bed a little bit longer. It's nice to be able to negotiate these things from time to time. And all it took was a shift of consciousness. Not a shift of doing, but a shift of intending. Are you looking at your phone there? Just check it. So, for those of you who have reservations about things, we need to start uncluttering what that means inside. You know? I would like to do this, but I have reservations about it. And I would like to do that, and I have reservations about it. Because the more I look at it, the more I go into it, the more I feel a lack of faith in self when there are those reservations. Instead of coming right out and saying, well, that's my fear, and that's my concern, or this is my anxiety, and that's what I don't trust. We have to start talking to ourselves with clarity. Inside, at least, we have to be clear. We have to say things so that our bodies understand what we're feeling, so that our bodies actually can get aligned with spirit. When the inner dialogue is one of non-confrontation, when the inner dialogue is one of hiding, then that intention that lives inside of you becomes obscure too. And you need not talk to anybody outside, because really it is the inner you that is co-creating with the universe, not the outside. Those hoops and balls don't exist until you bring your energy to it and send it somewhere and impact on something and intend something. So inside, this dialogue inside, when you're saying, I have a worry, I have a concern, I have a distraction, I'm procrastinating on purpose, I'm waiting for the moon to go from here to there, whatever the story is, go talk to it, unravel it, get it down to absolute basic systems that says, I don't trust that, or I don't know that. And you might discover that when you've brought it down to absolute basics, that the not knowing and the not trusting is actually just part of the challenge of maintaining the intention. That's its purpose. That if you're supposed to know, then why would you not know? Isn't that so? If you're supposed to know, you'd know. If you're supposed to find out, there must be a challenge. And if what you're doing here and being here is about becoming more yourself, then everything must hold a semblance of the unknown. And if you consider for one moment that what is going on in your life is a minuscule ounce of what is unknown, by comparison to everything that is going on around you that is so completely unknown, then your little unknown is quite insignificant, along with the insignificance of all your knowing. So when we are stagnant as a result of what little we don't know, then we must put it into the context, the great, grand context of how much else we do not know. And that is even scarier than what little you don't know. So I don't know what I'm going to have for breakfast tomorrow, and I don't even know whether I will have breakfast tomorrow. But the possibility of breakfast is there, right? Yeah. The mere fact that you don't know about something means that you do know something about it. You know when breakfast is. You know what the possibilities of breakfast are. Whether you're going to have that or not, you might not know. And it sounds like a really ridiculous example. But apply it to everything else. If you're saying, I don't know about that person, well, what do you know? And if what you do know doesn't inform what you don't know, then breathe in, have some patience, put it in the context of everything else you do not know, and you will discover that it is not important enough, it is not great and grand enough to stop you from being you. Which is just about the only thing the universe really requires for that intention to be maintained. It is only when you are hiding you and lying about you that everything becomes obscured, because then even you are unknown. And when you are the great unknown within your own intention, then even the universe doesn't know. Then nobody can know anything. And then the random chaos of the universe must take over, and you become what we call driftwood. And nobody has any problem with driftwood, provided it's willing to go with the flow. Provided it is willing to tumble over waterfalls and bang into rocks, nobody has any problem with driftwood. Except maybe the driftwood, because it will always long for a safe landing. So this notion of the unknown, together with the understanding of living on intention, when we are living on intention, the unknown becomes completely manageable. The unknown falls into the context of the universe provides with the most desirable outcome. And if you haven't lived that experience already in all of the years you've been coming to this center, then I don't know where you are living. Has anybody in this center not had that experience already? Of the universe unfolding for your highest good, regardless of what you had originally planned? Are you all thinking about it? Okay. You see, we have to have these conversations inside. I have these very confusing conversations with you. I put in a whole lot of information, all in one go on a Thursday night and on a Tuesday night. And then you must go away and you must talk to your bodies. You must let your body tell you, yes, we have had that actually. That made complete sense. Now let's work with that. Let's put it into this space of living intentionally. Because my body knows. We've been building experiences for over 2 years together. What is it, 213 meditations? We've been building these experiences. They're living inside of you. But until you start dialoguing with it, until you start including it in your living intentionally, it's just there. Information, data. So you might actually be overexposed now. Where all of the stuff is there, but you need to focus in and say, that one, or maybe this one. Let me use that. Let me see how it's going to shift and change my life from what I think is unknown to what actually is quite familiar. Because until we test it, we don't know that we know. Until we check it out, we don't know what we know. We don't know that we know. And once we tune into that, it becomes possible to know everything and know nothing. You can say, I know nothing, and yet everything is available because it's living inside of you. It's living inside of you as a word. It's living inside of you as an emotion, as a feeling, as an experience that you have had somewhere in this spiritual growth pattern. And it has been a pattern of growth, which is why we can come to 2016, 2017 and say, okay, we are ready to live intentionally. The year of the rooster is going to demand it of us. And this Aquarian new moon is going to demand it of us. So we've been practicing being spiritual warriors for how long now? At least 4 or 5 months? Longer? We've done every possible meditation about finding the truth of self and the power of the word. We have dealt with all of the demons and scorpions of self. We have gone through every one of the chakras, a few that we've known and a few that were completely unknown. All of those have prepared us to engage in this dialogue inside out, to start dissipating the reservations, to start cleaning out the clumps and congestion so that everything flows easily, smoothly, in a variety of directions and dispels the outside hoops. Because who wants to spend their life jumping through hoops? Not me. I want to spend my life dancing. I do not want to spend my life throwing balls. And of course, once all of that happens and the hoops disappear, then even the balls disappear. And you can't help but dance.